There we both are. So Mark and I are founders of the Coaching Institute, and some of you are students at the Coaching Institute, and some of you are brand new to the work we do. And what we do, what we've been doing now for over 10 years, about 12 years, is training life coaches in a variety of different specialties. And everything we train coaches in is in our umbrella of activation method coaching. And this is a style of coaching that really honors, we like to say it's client-centric. It honors our client, not just their goals and their needs, but really the client's inner wisdom, the client's unconscious mind, which I like to call the creative mind. And in activation method, we really help our clients become resourceful. And what we mean by resourceful is full of their own healthy vitality, energy, power. Resources might be creative, they might be people in the client's life. And we find that whatever is going on for a client, there is usually a skill, a resource that can be brought into, you could say, to them, through them. We're not doing it for them, but we're helping guide them through strategies and techniques and processes to find what they need to really activate these healthy parts of themselves, you could say, or these healthy actions in their life. And that's why we call it activation method, because we believe in a tradition of coaching that is, while being very spiritual and purpose focused, it's also about taking action. So it's also about the doing as the healing. So as we do, we also heal and restore.
And if you think about like what a, if you put yourself in the shoes of a coaching client, and so they're reaching out for a coach, right? And what brings someone to reach out for a coach? Because there's something that they want to bring into their life one way or another, right? They either want to, often it's a relationship goal. It's a external goal, like an achievement goal. It might be an internal goal, how they feel, right? And so they want something broad, and sometimes they feel like there's an obstacle, like something's in the way. So like, oh man, I keep wanting this career, but this thing gets in my way. Or I try to repair my relationship with this person, but this thing gets in my way, right? So this obstacle is stopping them. And now, so the question for coaches to ask is, what is really going to help this person the most? And our kind of stand on this is that the client, if they're asking for something, if there's pursuit of a goal, it's because they really can. And so the coach really holds the space and uses strategies, tools that will tell you about that actually helps the client to reconnect with their own strengths, their own resources, and their own creative mind.
Awesome. So one of the things that we from the very beginning have really used as a tool for understanding clients and understanding coaches too. So understanding this as we train coaches as well, is this idea of the 4 client types that comes from the elements in traditions like Bon Buddhism and Ayurveda. And you'll find the elements discussed in a slightly different way in Chinese medicine. But the elements are part of everything. And in the client types, we look at 5 main elements, but we group them into 4 client types. Now, when you know these types, it's very useful, not only as a coach, but as a friend, as a parent, as a child. It's really helpful in our relationships. Not everyone is the same type as we are. And so sometimes there can be great misunderstanding between people because there's this expectation for the other person to be like us.
And by type, we mean learning style, pacing, way that they organize their senses or their goals, the ways that they take action, the way that they communicate. And all this translates to often what they're hoping for to get from a coach, right? So different types of clients may have really different expectations from how a coach could help them. And so when a coach can figure out what that client's style is, we can really adjust our approach to serve them just in a really customized but very connected way.
And one of the things we're going to be doing today with you is we're going to be looking at these 4 different types that are here on the slide: air, fire, earth, water. Although I think I do fire first. I usually do, I'm not sure. But each of these client types has within it a way of relating to the world, relating to coaching, relating to relationships, to projects. It also has a state of being in sort of aggravated or triggered or out of balance, and it has a state of being in balance. And so as we go through these types, I want you to ask yourself, with each type, what part of me is like this type? And we all have all the elements within us. So usually in some part of our life or in some past year or because of some physical condition or life circumstance, we experienced a little more of either air, fire, earth, or water. And that's not always true. Some people have never experienced much of one, and that's fine. But let's just, for the sake of growth today, really imagine as much as you can how this type is in you. You'll notice which ones are more exactly you. And by the way, usually we are 2 types pretty strongly. And we might be more of one type in work, like we might be quite fiery in work, very directed, good planners, very passionate about work, very creative. And then maybe in another part of our life, like with our family, we might be a little bit more like the water element, which might be more comfort based, more about taking it easy, enjoying our time. I mean, that's not really, I have to say, that's a little unusual. Usually fire people are pretty intense at family time too, but I have known a few. I do know some fire earth people that you really can't get them off the couch come Saturday morning. They do not budge. I'm thinking of one of our friends, Mark, after the class. Tell me if you know who I'm thinking of. But during the week, very directed, very productive, very hardworking, very intense, like fire. So, you know, work life in general brings out more fire in people. Projects, things that are outward focused tend to have more fire element. But let's look a little closer now. Well, that's just a pretty slide. So, yeah, but we'll go straight to the. So we're going to start with air today.
Okay.
Okay. And you can see she's kind of floating there, right? The lady in this picture, she's meditating, but everything's just like light as air. So air clients tend to be a little untethered, you could say. They're not well grounded or connected to, they're looking for more connection in life and more support to take consistent action. They might have a lot of enthusiasm, many different projects, lots of things going, lots of ideas, lots of big words. So I often have a lot of air in me, and you'll hear me often use many different words to describe something. There's something a bit poetic about air element. Now, when it's out of balance, it can feel as though things are going too fast. It can feel overwhelmed. It can feel stressed. It can also feel imbalanced excitement, creativity, expansion, the spiritual quality of flexibility and that kind of lightness of being. In that expansion in relationship, air clients will include everyone. They will make the best of tense, difficult situations. They might be jokers. They might be lovers. They might be healers. And they're working to be connected to other people. And where they get into trouble is too much, just too many things at once, and it unstabilizes, ungrounds the air client.
Yeah. And so if you've, as a coach, you might notice an air quality in a client if they're speaking enthusiastically and changing the topic. So like, yes, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And it reminds me of this. And now I got to do this. And it's like, hold on, how are you going to get anything done when you keep moving? And they're shifting like the wind. And that is part of the beauty of the air client. And it's important for coaches. Sometimes coaches who are more fire type or who are organized, they just don't know how to handle this flow of thought and feeling and imagination.
Now, when you get two air people together, they have a great time.
Mhm.
They can brainstorm and figure stuff out, and they don't mind switching topics or ideas like lightning fast. And they feel so understood by another air type. Now, if they're married to an air type, that might not go so well because a lot doesn't get completed. There might be a sense of not being stabilized. So I often find that there are partnerships, either work or marriage relationship, between an air and an earth.
Mhm.
And that is a nice partnership because the earth person needs the air to stimulate them. Air is very stimulating. You just think of a windy day. It stimulates you, not just physically your skin, but it sort of stimulates your spirit.
Mhm.
So
And
as
so,
coaches,
yes.
what we're adding in for the air client is grounding, clarity, clear perspective. That might mean discernment. We're
Mhm.
adding balancing, which could be through doing something, a practice every day, breaking things down step by step. And we need, as coaches working with an air client, to really be patient, to know that in a coaching session, for example, there might need to be 20, 30 minutes of downloading, of processing all of the ideas and the stimulation. And if you ask an air client not to do that, they will often feel misunderstood. So I think this is where it's really important to understand from the client type perspective what's going on with someone. We are never, in our method, we are never trying to change someone's core element or nature. We are working with it. But when we know someone's an air client, we can ask them, would you like more stability? Would you like follow through on these projects? Would you like my help overcoming and healing procrastination or overwhelm? So this is like a fast shortcut into what the client really needs and wants. It works beautifully because it's so true for people. When you get this about them, they really feel that sense of being seen authentically.
I'm wondering who knows someone who's got air qualities in them in terms of the way they talk, think, plan. And for the other thing for a coach, I think it's important to really bring out the strengths of the air client and really respect them. They are often more creative. They make connections that people who are more compartmentalized don't get. They will often, they're the way they think, they see the big picture so they can see far into the future are many different ripples to the pond that happen, where someone who's just one step at a time doesn't get that big view. They have intuitions. So it's really fun to brainstorm with an air person, right? Because they have their speed of thought is much greater. So as a coach, you can really think this air client is going to help me to brainstorm and we're going to figure out a solution or an action steps for this week. And we may have a lot more motion, but it'll be more creative and more kind of expressive and more connected.
And for air coaches, just like this slide is pointing to, we want to sometimes slow ourselves down. So as a coach who is an air person, we need to ground our energy. Sometimes there might be a reason why I tend to make so many session plans, because having a lot of air in myself, I found as a coach, it was really stabilizing and helpful to have an outline for a session. So I wouldn't go in the 100 directions and give my client about 20 different suggestions. It helped me to have an outline and go step by step. Of course, I would trust my intuition. Of course, I would be enthusiastic and bring in creativity. But having that outline is grounding, and it helps an air coach really focus and be there step by step for their client. Of course you do. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, so also there are people who may not be primarily air, but in certain situations, they have an air dynamic, they notice it happening. And it's often in situations where you feel less grounded, less familiar, less knowing what step is next, right? So for instance, someone who's starting a new business, they might be like, oh, I got to do the marketing. I've got to do this. I got to figure out the finance. I got to do the LC. What am I going to do? And they're going all over the place because they're trying to get coverage of an area that's unfamiliar to them. And so many of our clients are actually exploring into new areas that they don't have a lot of familiarity. They take a step towards, the new zone, and they get so overwhelmed by questions and doubts and not knowing and trying to imagine something that they haven't experienced before, that they step back. So also,
and that's what we would call getting overwhelmed, right, Mark?
Yes.
So we get overwhelmed. It's an increase of air. So naturally what we can do is ground, centralize, think of one step at a time. And we've just helped ourselves if we're an air person, or we've just helped our client. So let's move on. I'm just thinking with time, yep. we have 3 more client types.
Yes.
Okay. So fire. So fire has that enthusiasm, that passion, that life, that sense of motivation. Now, on the negative side, fire can lead to anger, rage, criticism, judgment, burnout. It can burn other people out. It can be too intense, too direct. So fire clients, one story I love to kind of show a fire client on the side of like the mind is fire clients are really good at things like proofing, planning, finding what's wrong with something. So I remember before working with one client early in my coaching career, I received an email with a breakdown, an email from my future client. We had not had a session. And they sent me an email with a point-by-point criticism of everything they had seen on my website and everything I had produced. And instead of going, oh no, they hate me, I went, oh, I've got what we call in Ayurveda, a pitta person. I've got a fire client to work with here. Great, they're going to get a lot done very quickly. And I thanked them for their suggestions, and I knew we were going to get right to work in the coaching. There would be no messing around. They were going to want a list from me of action items on that first session. They would do those action items and they would move quickly. And that's a relief as a coach. It's nice to have a fire client. Now, it's not so nice for the people in the life of the fire client if the person is causing other people stress and discomfort and pain. So if the people in the fire client's life are suffering because the fire person is having rage or anger issues, or they're not great at communicating because they really have a hard time seeing other people's point of view, that of course gets in the way of the fire client, the fire person. So fire in balance really brings out that emotion of joy, of motivation, of enthusiasm, insight, planning, action taking. It is passionate. I like to think of a fire person as having great vision. They're often leaders. They're often great thinkers. They might be writers. They might be artists. They might be politicians. They might be teachers. They like teaching. So who here often coaches or fire? So who here feels in themselves some of this fire element, this fire type? Now, if you do, have you ever felt it go too hot? Or have you ever felt the exhaustion, the burnout of being a fire person? I still, I got to admit, I'm getting pretty mature to have the same old problems, but I still will work too hard, too long. If I'm happily working because I love my work, I might start writing and I will write, till 2 a.m. And that is very typical of fire. It's this, as the fire builds, we keep on going. It builds our enthusiasm and our creativity. So I need to mention one other thing. If you've got an air client with a lot of fire, then you're going to tend to have a lot of overwhelm and burnout, because the air fans the fire and then things burn out.
Sorry. And so fire clients often have a very blunt, like they might be the one that they say, what's your point? That's not what we're talking about. Like, they're very directed. They really want to move forward. And so it's important to recognize this as a coach, because think like, what does an air client want? Air client wants you to like hold the space, to support, to help them figure out which way to go, to be gentle and and welcoming to their creativity, right? And kind of more of a supportive. And a fire client is often like, tell me what the next thing is. I want to figure out, like, you'll see planning, you'll see speed. And I think of it like clear the railroad tracks for them. Like, they are moving fast. So if I'm trying to be a coach, I'm like, well, I want to support you. It's like, I don't need support. I need to know where to go. I need my goals. I need my action steps. I need my planning. Right. So just recognizing those two different needs from clients is really important.
And I think fire clients really do value a coach's perspective. A balanced fire person enjoys advice, enjoys other people's experience. They are, like any human being, there can be a wisdom that is beyond whatever your type is. And I think a fire client who is in balance is really gathering perspectives and tools. I think of them as like these very intelligent gatherers, and I can give them more and more and more as a coach, and they're going to gather it and they're going to use it when they need. I've had the experience with some early on with a fire client, a different one that I met with for 3 hours. I gave this woman a whole long list of things to do. She never called me back. And I thought, wow, that didn't go well. I gave her too much to do. It was too long a session. I ran into her at the park like 3-4 months later, and she told me everything worked out. She followed everything I said to the letter, and her body healed, her relationship healed. She was feeling so much better emotionally, mentally. And I was like, oh, she never called me. She didn't want another session. She just wanted her action plan. So I learned, okay, don't give so much up front with a fire client. We do want to pace every client. Otherwise, we might not have a coaching practice, because if everyone's a fire client, it's going to go very quickly.
One big benefit that you can offer most fire clients who are really hard workers is they often, as you said, Magali, bring their work pacing to their family life. And they're upset when, like, hey, my family's not treating me like I'm the CEO who just gets to delegate tasks, right? So they're like, what do I do? And so helping it, but they're very intelligent. So you can help them understand the game is different. The outcome and the purpose is different in a family situation or in a relaxation situation, or actually unplugging for a vacation and not checking your phone every 5 minutes. Yeah. Or just having totally unopen, open scheduled time, or totally open creative time where there's no outcomes, helping them to embrace that different kind of approach is really useful for fire clients to explore.
And one thing that this is kind of new, if some of you have been familiar with this workshop before, this is a new idea. And that is that both air and fire are very forward facing. It is a pushing, a doing out in the world. It is very front stage activities in a person's life. It is the busyness that is focused outward of the self, often. Now, earth and water that we're going to do next, just lean back a little in your chair now. Feel your back body. Earth and water tend to be a little bit more connected to the invisible, the metaphorical, the mystical, the connection with nature, the slowing down, the taking time to relax, to be present, to see that not everything has to go at the pace of a fire or an air person to get done. So as we relate to earth clients, it's good to really feel that grounded earth quality in ourselves, feel the mountain. Now we are going to, of course, need to stimulate an earth client a little more. So let's look at the qualities of an earth client. And these are more the negative here. They can often get stuck in one way of thinking, one way of doing, one way of being, which can be limiting, right? Because there would be that lack of flexibility or momentum. However, on the positive, they are loyal, they are committed, they are safe, they are present, and they have a natural ability to feel a sort of certainty, comfort. Now, on the negative side of that, they can really get set in their ways, and it can be kind of like the experience of having blinders on. And so when they come to coaching, which is more rare than a fire or air person, but when an earth person comes to coaching, they're often there because a spouse has gotten them there, or a parent has gotten them there. Yeah. So an earth client is less likely to think that change is important. An earth client might be what we call a slow changer. They want to really trust you, trust the relationship, take it slow, see progress incrementally, one step at a time. They have no problem going one step at a time, and they will work longer and harder than anyone else. But they're going to take it in their own way, in their own time. Now, they are patient, they are kind, they are often the earth mothers and fathers around us. They will support others and nurture them. An earth coach is a great blessing, because that earth coach will gently build the relationship. There's no hurry, there's no rush, there's all the time in the world. And so I have to say, I've got an earth coach that I meet with, and my earth coach is about as different as different can be from me in some ways. And I find it very healing to have that earth coach in my life. It's nothing like the therapy or coaching I've had with other people who are more fire or air. And yet right now in my life, it's exactly what I need and want. So whatever kind of type you are as a coach, that can be your strength. And there will be clients who need that quality. So please share if you have ever been friends with an earth person, had an earth client, if you are more an earth coach. And Mark, what would you like to say about this?
Someone who's, can you think of someone who's like, people would say they're the salt of the earth, or they're my rock, or they're the person who holds everything together, or they're the one who really carries everything. They're the dependable one, right? Often the earth person is like the go-to person, like, oh man, oh no, things are falling apart. We need someone who's going to do this. And it's the earth person. And the earth person actually rises to the stimulation and the challenge of that. And that's why often when you're coaching an earth person, they are actually motivated by service and being there for others. So that's often the main reason that they'll find, like, oh, I do need to develop this, or I do want to make room for this person to grow in this way, or I do
Yeah.
want to help this person in that way. That really kind of gets them out of the earth mode of being very so consistent and stable and steady, and think, oh, I need to actually serve this person in this way, or open up in this space, or allow them to be served.
That's great. So, I mean, you could say that it's often relationship and love that are the reasons why an earth
Yeah.
person creates change in their life. So, and you could say with fire, it's often vision and projects or creativity that sparks change and healthy activation. And with an air person, it's often the expansive quality of whatever they're in that is the motivator. It's that desire to expand and grow out that the air client has. So what we're adding into an earth is like just think you're working with clay. What do you do with clay? You add to it. You knead it, you move it. You are bringing some flexibility, some energy, some alternate perspectives into the earth client. You're helping them find that motivation for being flexible, for seeing things in another way. If an earth client is very stuck, they often, actually, just like a fire client or an air client, need to work on compassion for others, seeing another's point of view. So in some ways, these things are really universal, what is needed. But I think the speed that an earth client might need, it could involve, for example, doing some breathing with them. That's not the long, slow. It might be a little different. It might be some, if you were working from more the yogic perspective, you might do some fire breathing. You might take a walk with an earth client. You might have them do some pretend exercises with you to build up creativity and imagination. So we are kind of bringing the playfulness into the earth client in the creative mind strategies that we use.
And I love that you add in there, because that's really the key. Often people, when we're dealing with someone's earth, or water, air quality, we think, stop being that much, stop being so much like that, it's like too much or whatever. And it's much better to think, what can we add? You can't change someone's nature. That's not the job of a coach or a person. It's what can you add? What can you offer? What can you kind of bring into the situation?
So water clients, I have to say something from the Ayurvedic perspective, in case some of you guys are Ayurvedic practitioners or you just love Ayurveda as a practice. So in Ayurveda, there's really 3 doshas, which are broken up differently than we do the client type. So this is a little different. But water clients are like the combination of kapha with some pitta, if you're coming from an Ayurvedic perspective. So there is in the water client it's really the biggest quality is emotional sensitivity. This is water clients. And so, like, for example, I am not a water person or a water client, and yet I relate to the water element so much from the point of view of mysticism, of altered states of consciousness, of sensitivity, and the holding of sacred space. So I think of, like, if you think of a vessel actually carrying water, I know there's an astrological sign for that. I forget what it is. Is it your sign, Mark?
Yep,
Is
Aquarius.
it the Aquarius? Yeah. So that container for the water, that is like the water person in great balance. They're a container for emotion, for mysticism, for the unseen, the mysterious, the inner essence at the soul level. The water person is also flexible and flowing, and they will move with other people's emotions. Now, this can get them into trouble sometimes. So
Mhm.
when they get into trouble, the water client is feeling what everyone else is feeling. And they actually sometimes feel responsible for everyone else's emotions. So where the earth client is solid and allows people to lean on them, they're really not going to start feeling like everyone in the room. The water client might be a great holder for this sacred space, and
Mhm.
they will also almost merge or become other people's emotions or thoughts or issues. So somebody who, this is another way I really relate to water, is if you're a somatic processor, or like in myself, just to be vulnerable for a moment, one of my biggest problems is feeling physically problems as pain. And so when we process a lot in our body, I really relate this to the water element, maybe because we're made up of so much water, but it's a sort of taking in of information right into the cells of the body,
Yeah.
and that can be a problem.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we are helping, and that's why there might be a lack of boundaries, there might be self-critical, over changing.
Mhm.
So one of the things we're really bringing into more balance with a water client, if we look at water client in balance, they have comfort and ease and peace, tranquility, safety, openness. They are that container, and they can hold that vastness of mystery within their container of self, of energy, of water. And that's in balance. Now, anything that can be in balance can be out of balance. So when a water client is out of balance, too many emotions might be happening for them to be able to process at once. And so there's a lot we can do with anyone who's having water client issues. And this is something that Activation Method, I think one of our greatest strengths in the method is helping with emotional maturity, emotional processing, emotional and nervous system regulation through using the creative mind and the senses and the body, using somatic experiences, bringing the body into all the coaching. So this is really desirable for a water client. And boundaries, understanding what is a healthy boundary, being
And
able to separate oneself emotionally, energetically from other people, sensing when they are exhausted. So the types here who probably need the most help sensing when they're exhausted are air and water.
yeah. And I love this picture, the way that the water kind of demonstrates how water meets its own level. It's like people also, the water people will meet the level of someone else in terms of emotions. The other thing that water clients really need help with is they often want one thing, but their emotion is taking them in a different direction than that. So if you feel like, oh yeah, I have to do this, I got to do this, but the emotion is not moving in that direction, it's flowing in a different direction. It's like a river where you're like, I want the river to flow this way, but that way is downhill. So also
So in that
water,
case, Mark, can I jump in here?
sure.
And because I love that metaphor you brought in, or that idea. I just love that they want something and yet their emotion is not meeting what they want. So let's say they have a goal to make a business, but their emotions are saying, I'm not good enough, or I'm not ready enough, or I don't know enough, or whatever it is, that emotion is pulling them away. Fear, self-judgment is pulling them away from the actions that they have as their goal. So we can work with those emotions. We can validate emotions. We can become masterful, help our clients become masterful with the emotions that are happening, and learning how to bring in what we like to call emotional helpers.
Yeah.
And this works so well as an adding in for the water client, bringing in the emotional helpers.
And that's important, especially because so much of our culture is about putting your willpower above your actual sense of being, like who you are and what your experience is. So people are like, no, you got to do it. You got to push down on yourself. And the person just doesn't have the emotions that are in sync, that are aligned with the activity that they want to make. So as a coach, it's really important to be able to accept and help the client to accept the emotional experience that they're having. Let that become a resource for them so that then they can really unify with it. Who, by the way, can relate to the water client?
And one thing, when a client is really mystified by a person in their life, it's often a water person that they're confused by. Because the water person can change a lot and might not be as clear in their identity or their personality, their motivations, their values. And so often when we're talking to a client who's really confused about someone they're close to, I ask some questions to kind of know if that person has a lot of water element going on.
Sometimes a water person will make a big life decision on the basis of how they feel, where everyone else is like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. The numbers don't make sense, or it's illogical, or it's impractical, but they will go with the feeling. And it might be a feeling of purpose, or it might be a feeling of, I can't do that anymore. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so, let's just go back to full screen for a minute here. I wanted to do a little experiment with you guys. I'm looking at the time. I just want to take a few minutes to check this out. Think of something you're working on in your life. Something, anything at all, and write it down. What are you working on? It could be a project to clean something up. It could be a project to connect some people. It could be a work project, a home project, a creative project, a social project, anything at all. Okay. So when you have that, now let's look at, how does your type, the type that you're most personally aligned to, how is it helping that project? And maybe you want to look at each type. How does fire help your project? What does fire do to help whatever project you're thinking of right now? How does air help your project? So fire, just to give you some ideas here, fire might create planning, motivation, enthusiasm, joy. Air, what will air do? I want you to write the specifics for yourself, but I'm going to just do this as a little review to personalize it. Air will bring in flexibility, movement, opportunity. Air is expansive. It might include other people. So let air help you right now in your project. And then let's look at earth. Is there anything related to your project that needs more stabilizing, more certainty, grounding, centering, that you can lean on? This could be a value. What value supports your project? Values are often like earth. They are stable. They are there for us as a resource that never goes away. Like, let's look at the value of love, which is a very earth quality. Where is the love in this project? And you'll find where the earth is. Where is the connection in the project? You'll find where the earth is. That element you can lean on. And let's look now at water, the emotions that come with this project. What emotions come with the project? And what is the magical unknown, even if it's kind of playing with you in a negative way, like, oh, it's messing me up, I don't know enough about it. But what is the unknown, the mystery, the emotional side, the vulnerability of emotion, of water element in this project? So maybe you just think of one thing you still need to figure out. And instead of looking at that need to figure it out as a negative, you see it as an opening up to the unknown, to the mystery. And that's how you bring water element to it. Okay, so I would love to know if that gave you any. I know that was really quick. That was 3 minutes actually, exactly. So imagine if in a coaching session, you were working with a client on a relationship or a project, and you brought in each element as a tool to assist them. Do you see how that could be really helpful and really creative and fun? So that's one thing I love about coaching, is that it gets to be creative and fun and connected and stimulating all at once, all in 1 hour. And every person, you, me, everyone out there, is more than just one of these types, of course. So we might have a little more of one or two types, and yet we're all so much more. We're so individualistic as well.
What's great about a framework like this, so say as an activation method coach, you can take your client through like what we just took you through, so that they can really identify for themselves the different types. We're calling them client types because you guys are, coaches, or we're on the topic of coaches. But a client can also, a coaching client can also go through this. And so you're helping someone to really fine tune their own perceptions and their own experiences, and be able to embrace and make friends with the different energies that they have and the different things that they are going through. And you don't have to know it up front. You have a framework for taking someone through that.
And we also work with these elements and client types. Were any of you on meditation group yesterday? Because we did an interesting meditation with the elements. And in activation method coaching, I know some of you are activation method coaches too, or energy coaches. We work with the elements through guided meditations with our coaching clients. And that's something you can do as a coach in the session. You can take 5 to 30 minutes to guide your client through a process that, in a meditative, mindful way, connecting the body, the breath, the imagination, the memory, the senses, the creativity, brings in those resources. And then you, of course, as a coach, this is different than being a meditation teacher. As a coach, we allow our client, we encourage our client to talk to us through any one of these more creative or meditation-like processes. We talk through it. And at the end, we process it with the client. The processing of what happens in kind of more subtle states, or you could say more hypnotic states, or more tuned into the unconscious states. The processing is really critical for finding how that is now going to become the doing part of life, how that's going to be an activation of a support system internally for the person.
So often coaches are wondering, so what do I do to help my client? What do I do to help them move towards their goals? And so in activation method, we really use tools like this to help the client to connect to their nature, their priorities, their strengths, their energies, right? So that then what's interesting is that clients will then be like, oh, I get it. I know what I need to do, or that makes sense. Now it makes sense. This is what you'll hear from a client when they've connected with kind of what makes them, they connect with it. And then suddenly the thing that seemed like this big obstacle, like, I don't know how to do this. It's like, oh, it's like that other thing that I know how to do. Or it's like, oh, I forgot that I'm a air person, not a fire person. I have to do it air person way.
And now they also have a shared language with you and with other people and for themselves to know when I just got too fiery. I need to do those practices my coach taught me to cool down, to bring patience in, or I just got really expanded like air, I'm going to ground. Or I just got really stuck in my perspective. How do I feel the compassion and bring in other points of view into this problem I'm having? So they learn these tools that then in their life, often as a coach, you'll send them home with a homework practice or suggestion that they've created for themselves. You can help them when needed. but often the best is when the client finds their own intention for the week. And so a whole week might be spent on healthy fire. And somebody, by the way, who struggles with feeling anger, maybe they've been in a toxic relationship, maybe they've had a lot of emotional manipulation and it hasn't been safe to feel their own anger. Getting to know the power of fire might have to do with giving oneself permission to feel something like anger that might not have been safe to do before. So for a week, the person might be like, we're not, okay, don't get me wrong here. We're not sending them home to like rage or anything, but, talk to the fire within, understand its passion, understand its emotional qualities, look at a candle flame, drink some hot beverages, and bring in that enthusiasm and joy that comes with fire. And also sometimes understanding any emotions like their irritability or their frustration or their anger, that's part of healing fire. That's part of becoming, like Mark was saying, integrated and embodied, is when we give ourselves permission for all of those elements to be a part of our experience. So I do want to share with you guys in the last few minutes here. I just sort of lost my PowerPoint. Hold on, let's see. There we go. I wanted to share with you about activation method training because we are just opening and it's a brand new program. Actually, I've just spent the last week deep diving into the content, and we have expanded a little bit, talking about air. And talking about staying up till 2 or 3 a.m. It was because of this program. So we now have a very new, exciting sort of configuration of activation method training with 20 modules. I needed to make it a little bit more. I just wanted people to have every tool that they needed. And so in the program, there are 20 main modules, each with its own session plan. And there's actually 35 strategies you learn. And we like to teach in different ways. And this is bringing in, I'm going to keep bringing in the elements. We want to make a stimulating program. We want to make a program, we've made a program that not only focuses and directs your energy and your knowledge, but also really activates that movement of air and that stability of earth, of knowing that you can be a coach that clients lean on, that you support, you create that safe space. And so one of our favorite ways of kind of giving coaches that experience that is so necessary to be successful as a coach is it's so simple. It's to be a coach. So right from the beginning, you are a coach. You learn through practicing at boot camp. You learn through practicing in practice lab or practicing with your neighbor or your friend. It's okay. Wherever you can get practice, we want you to get practice, because we know in the doing of coaching with these outlines, because remember, I need those outlines, and that's why I've created over 100 outlines. We call them strategies, coaching session plans. They're basically an outline to keep you moving forward, teaching your client, helping them create discoveries and new skills, one session at a time. And so when we work this way, it makes coaching, one, a lot easier and more relaxing, but it also really helps our client be able to look back at like 10 sessions and go, oh yeah, I discovered my modes of being. Then I did the archetypes, and oh, I healed stress through Coaching 360. I use that one all the time. And that's what clients will tell us. There will be like usually 4 or 5 strategies that really hit the mark for a client. And then they use that strategy over and over again in different parts of their life to help themselves.
It really helps you. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
It really helps you to plan your coaching practice, because, for instance, a client might mention during one session that they have a difficult meeting with an ex where they, exchange the kids or something like that, and that stresses them out. And then you could say, hey, would you like to focus on that next session, right? And then what do? You have a strategy, which happen. One of them is called the 4P strategy, which is for situational stressors, right? So then you will guide that client through and you'll say, hey, let's talk about it. You'll learn about it. And you actually have a whole session that's planned out for them to really be able to delve and discover the resources that they have in that situation that usually causes stress.
And so here I just jump forward in the slides to the slide that has all the 20 module topic points. So each one of these modules in the program comes with that session plan that we're talking about, that strategy. It also comes with Mark and I teaching about that through a lecture or a workshop, through coaching demonstrations. So you learn through understanding at this level, you learn through experiencing the strategy for yourself, which I think of more as, neck down, feeling it, embodying it, having the experience for yourself. And then you learn through coaching with it. Now we've also I was told by some folks, Magali, you're making your trainings kind of big. People want to graduate quickly. So I've also done that. And now to graduate from our programs, we have short little quizzes for each module versus having to do a lot of note taking or session practices. So you can actually graduate from our programs now with quizzes instead of those long journals, if some of you are students. Now, if you want to do the long journal instead of the quiz, just talk to us. We're happy. We're very flexible. So you've got lots of options. So boot camp training that we were talking about before, it starts August 27th as our first one-day boot camp. Now there's another one day in October that's an option too, but you don't have to come live to any of the live classes or boot camps. They're all recorded for you. Everything is there for you. Actually, the day that you join Activation Method, you get the future boot camps in your library as a student. You'll get a past one. So we just give it all to you right away. And if you can come live, it's an opportunity for tremendous growth in a very short time. So people start on day one as total beginners, and by day 3, they've coached 6 or 7 clients. They've had such a wealth of experience that what gets activated within is an inner confidence, a kind of knowing I can be scared to death, still show up, follow the session plan, and my client will have benefit. And that's just extraordinary to, in 3 days, go from a beginner who's maybe quite stressed out or scared about doing the coaching, even though there's that desire to coach and to be of service, to on day 3, having the confidence of having helped 7 people. It's pretty incredible. And that inner confidence of knowing that we can be of service, that we can support our clients, that's where the real motivation comes in to build your whole professional coaching business. So these are the dates and these are the modules. I'm just kind of jumping around here. This is the place. Activationmethod.net is where we're enrolling. We're open just for, I don't know, Mark, if it's about 1 or 2 weeks.
Yep.
Something like that, about
Something
2
like
weeks.
that.
We're open for enrollment. Today's the first day. And because it's the first day, we're not sure if that link is totally working yet.
It's good.
It's good? Oh,
Yep.
good. It's working. See, it just got finished. I worked all morning on that front page. So it's there for you. And in the program, you also get creative coach workshops. This is a series of 8 workshops. There are the subjects. And in these workshops, we really explore, actually, I walk you through these processes and you applying them to yourself. So one of my hopes for the creative coach workshops is that you are sort of bringing in your healthy power and your understanding about yourself, and you're healing any blocks or things that need healing, integration, releasing, whatever it is, so that you can really move forward as your most authentic, true self as a coach. So this is a bonus. You do not have to do the creative coach workshops to graduate. We have 6 months of live classes, 12 months if you pay the tuition in one payment. And our tuition actually has gone down a little bit. In case you're interested, we're doing a little summer special. So summer yet fall, because we were thinking back to school. And so you have these live classes every week. There's mentorship class with myself and Mark. We take turns where we take your questions, we offer you supervision, and we coach you depending on what you need as a student. Every mentorship class is different. It's exciting. You can attend and just sort of relax and clean the kitchen as you watch or listen. Or you can attend and raise your hand and get a lot of support. It's really all about your way of learning. They're also all recorded and they're there for you within a week after the class. We used to say 48 hours, but we got that water element going on. So it's really more about a week that you have those mentorship classes in your library. One of the things that's a little different about us, we give you your training forever. So there's no deadline for finishing the program. You have as long as you need. Now, most people do finish the program in about 3 to 6 months. Some people in as short as 2 months. I would say average is 4 to 6 months, but there's always the people who, are a little more fire in them, and they plan and they get through the program very quickly. You can start coaching as soon as you learn a strategy. So what we ask you to do is practice any strategy session plan 3 times before you use it with a professional client. That just feels like practical, healthy wisdom, right? We want to feel the session for ourselves. We want to feel it with another person and another person. So you count as one of the 3 times. In the program, you get incredible marketing training. Mark's going to talk about it in a minute. You get a meditation classroom with over 50 meditations, strategy library, video demonstrations of coaching, so many video demonstrations. If you like to learn by watching real coaching in action, we have a lot of it in the program. And I think I covered everything. Practice lab. Oh, there's 21 practice labs that every week we change the skill, and these skills relate to your modules. And so every week our whole community gets together for both mentorship and practice lab. And our team is there during practice lab to offer you supervision. So if you have a question, you just raise your Zoom hand, and a master coach will come into your room and really be there for you, support you in what kind of question you might ask, what would come next. If a part of the session might be a little confusing, they help you work out how to put it into your own words, what resonates with you. So our team is just incredibly nurturing and supportive. And, sometimes I wish I could call them for some supervision. That's really how good they are. So they're there for you every week. And Mark, you want to talk a little bit more now? I've been talking a lot.
So this program prepares you for the board certified coach credential, which is offered by the Center for Credentialing and Education. This is one of the 3 main accrediting bodies in the world. It is a worldwide credential, and in our belief, it's the best one. And so when you finish this, you get to, and then what that means, in case you're not familiar, is that you get a certificate from Coaching Institute, which is like your diploma from us. And then you now qualify to take an online test with board certified coach. And then you get that, and that's a third party. And it's just really nice to have that. It kind of shows that you're part of this worldwide community of accredited coaches. Regarding the marketing, as a coach, it may not seem like this, but you have some incredible advantages in marketing and building your business as a coach versus being a course creator or an author or a speaker or all those things. And so we have really developed a program that is specifically for coaches I wouldn't follow this advice. If you're an author or a course creator, it's really different, right? We want to have a program that's specifically for coaches, specifically especially if you have any, butterflies about starting to get your first clients, or about getting your first paying clients. We really support you through this very simple process, incredibly low tech, you don't have to become an expert marketer. And also, it's really a natural outgrowth of the way you want to be as a coach. It's really important for a coach as a professional is to not to think like, oh, now marketing is going to be some other way that I have to be. I have to be a pushy or something like that. We really stay in integrity throughout the whole process. And for that reason, our students really start to get clients quickly. Often it's the thing that makes a big connection for them.
Awesome.
We have a bonus.
So just a reminder about the meditation classroom. It comes with meditation scripts as well as videos and audios. So some of the coaches use these for themselves. Some coaches use them to learn to guide meditation with clients. And then we have in the marketing suite several different programs. Mark, I don't know how much detail you want to go into.
Sure. So Coach Accelerator is a 5-day where we go together through about 2 hours a day, maybe 2.5 hours a day, walking you through the steps that you need to set up your practice online. Clarity Session Magic is a focused training on developing that clarity session or that free consult that you give clients, which is a wonderful thing to be able to offer people if they get benefit, whether they sign up or not. And this is the way they really make it very easy to get clients to sign up. Marketing Makeover is a series of consultations that I did with coaches who were kind of testing their creative and their websites and the names of their practice. And so you'll see the insight of how do you really get your message to speak to your prospective clients. So it really makes sense because clients often think of things differently than we think as coaches.
And one thing I wanted to share with you guys, because it just brings in so much joy for me, is that when we're sharing about these programs, these photos are from our live events. So hopefully in 2023, we'll start having live events again. But this was a group of students getting ready. They did this, this exercise, and it was just beautiful. And then, here in the board certificate, well, that's not the students. This was a student at the end of boot camp. We do the tunnel for graduation and everyone goes through it. So she was doing that. I believe that was in a Boston boot camp.
Yeah.
And here was doing energy exercises at a boot camp. So, I don't know, it always just brings so much joy for me to see past students, whether on Zoom or in the pictures. It's a community that is really close. So it's a community where you'll not only find the support of colleagues, but you'll make true friendships. I think I can generalize to say that people who join our Coaching Institute programs have really big open hearts. There's a quality of support and I'm looking for the right word here. I wasn't planning on speaking about this, but it's this acceptance and validation of each other that I think really gives everyone in the community, including Mark and myself and the team, the inner resources to keep being of service. The people we surround ourselves with, the activities we do, the way we approach learning, the way we practice, the way we heal and work on ourselves, all of this creates, I think, at the heart, inner healing for ourselves and this sort of resource of service. And when our coaching comes out of that desire to really be a helper in the world, to really make the world better. I think probably probably like us, you have experienced a year or 3 years of some uncertainty, some trauma, some pain, maybe not personal pain, but global pain for others. There's a lot going on. And I think, again, this is a generalization, but I think that this is really what I'm observing in our community at Coaching Institute. What we're seeing is more and more coaches getting clients and just feeling like there's no longer time for it to be about my own insecurity. There's no longer time to be like, well, I don't know enough to help someone, or I don't have enough of this or that. There's this need in us as practitioners, in all of us, to just be of service to this world that is suffering and needs us. So that's its own kind of activation, right? And sometimes we have to be actively healing our blocks as they come up to be of service. So I want to make sure that everyone who joins our program is supported, not only in getting skills and knowledge and information and practice and all that coaching stuff, but also really supported in their own inner resources to be able to clear what has been limiting or taking away from your ability to activate this beautiful essence in you that knows it can make the world better, that knows it can help a person, whether it's through the elements or through a creative strategy, through listening, through being a calm, safe presence for someone to process with. These are the deeper skills that go into this action of being of service. And it has a way of coming back to you. So what I find is the more you sign up clients, you help them, you're making the world better, you are also, my hope is that you're also actively taking care of yourself. And that means stepping into your own power. That means stepping into your strengths, into your intuition, and into your relationships, because it's the relationships too that give us that energy we need to support others. So I hope you've enjoyed today's session and that you got something out of the elements. I hope some of you join us. And I guess I should share again. I always get asked at the end to share that slide again. Activationmethod.net. That's where you can join the Activation Method Life Coach Certification Program. We have our first live session together August 27th. But as soon as you join, you immediately get the classroom with all the modules, all the meditations, all the marketing, everything right away. And you have Mark and myself and a team of really masterful coaches and supporters there to help you navigate your education as a coach. So I hope that we meet again and that you are well and that you have a wonderful day.
Take care, guys.
All right, guys, be well. Talk soon. Send us any questions and check us out at activationmethod.net. Bye, guys.